On behalf of the Manufacturing Outreach Center, I'd like to welcome you to the January Manufacturing Advantage webinar. As a reminder, participant mics will be muted for the presentation, but there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Please feel free to type any questions you may have in the chat. So today we'll be hearing from Emily Laird from UW-Stout. Emily is a lecturer and AI leader with extensive experience in AI and generative AI across various sectors. Additionally, she hosts the podcast Generative AI 101, making complex AI concepts accessible to everyone. Emily's approach to AI is grounded in experience and curiosity, always integrating the latest technologies with practical applications. With that, I'll hand it over to Emily.
All right. Anna, thank you so much. Okay, so thank you so much for having me. As Anna said, my name is Emily Laird. I am the AI integration technologist at the University of Wisconsin-Stout. When I'm not at the University of Wisconsin-Stout, I get to do incredible things with AI and machine learning in the cancer research sector. I also work as a consultant for a lot of different businesses, organizations, places and spaces, state education boards. So it is just a pleasure. And yes, I have a podcast, which I never set out to create. It came out of a space that I was doing a lot of conferences and workshops in industry spaces. And I found that the reality was folks understood that there was this new field of artificial intelligence coming up. There was generative artificial intelligence really kind of being that gateway drug into this new world of AI in many spaces. But it was hard to understand concepts like machine learning, deep learning, latency, open source LLMs, etc. So what I wanted to do with the podcast is just create short 5-minute episodes that help people better understand in really simple, basic ways. So today, we're just going to look at AI and generative AI in manufacturing and kind of a roadmap to successful implementation. So I'll walk you through the agenda here. Today, we're going to cover AI and Gen AI in industry. So defining artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence is how they relate to the manufacturing industry, because these new technologies really trickle into vast amounts of spaces and places, fields, careers, actions, tasks, roles, etc. But let's look at it through a very filtered lens. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to look at key AI applications. So a look at today's AI industry applications in your particular field of manufacturing. We're then going to look at generative AI applications. Okay, so an exploration of how Gen AI.
Okay,
An exploration of how generative AI is accelerating innovation in your sector. We'll then take a look at the vision for the future. And what I'm actually going to provide you today is a micro view of this comprehensive framework that I do as a workshop for teams and groups to better understand how they can onboard and integrate AI into their workday. Because it's easy to say, here's an umbrella space of artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence. Now use it. That becomes a very personal tool and task, and it's a new habit you need to build into your career and space. So let's get into this. All right, so I'm going to start with what is artificial intelligence. So AI refers to systems or machines that simulate human intelligence to perform tasks and to iteratively improve based on the information they gather. Now, I've also heard this said well by Demis Hassabis, who is the lead researcher and head of Google's DeepMind. He simply said, AI is teaching computers to do human things. And I totally love that and agree with it. So we can simply think about it's creating human tasks from computers. So let's look at some key applications as they relate more to your field. So data processing and analysis. You create extensive amounts of data. Your business, your organization, your machinery creates extensive amounts of data. And one thing where artificial intelligence really surpasses us as human beings is the ability to process and analyze vast amounts of data, finding things like patterns. So we'll look at this next part is pattern recognition. It's easy for an artificial intelligence agent properly trained to understand the patterns that are involved in your data. This can be anything, and we'll get into this, like the supply chain management of your space, all the way down to your tier 1 machinery and the effectiveness of it running. Okay, so pattern recognition really creates a space where artificial intelligence can step in and help you be prepared for the future, whether that be later today, tomorrow, or next week, by looking at the patterns that are involved in your business, your workday, your company, or your organization. Then there's things like automation. Automation is one of those tasks that we think of inherently when we talk about artificial intelligence. We may think of automation simply through robotics, right? But robotics is really a secondary field that's matched with automation in a lot of these spaces. So the data comes in, it creates automation tasks for robotics, or you could automate tasks in various ways, whether that be automating an email response or automating a process on an assembly line. So those are some key applications of artificial intelligence. You probably woke up with artificial intelligence today and didn't realize it. I always say my favorite artificial intelligence is the stuff I don't even know is going on, right? So you woke up today and you opened your phone with your face. Well, that's image recognition AI, and it allowed your phone to understand the structure and build of your face and open your phone for you, okay? You probably also used AI today sending emails. When you got to work today, your emails may have been filtered into a focus folder with those secondary things you have that come in, like you randomly have like a Walgreens subscription that runs through your computer or your email, and it kind of filters it to that secondary space. It's those types of things. You probably don't have Nigerian princes asking for money in your inbox. I do, but it's a personal choice. Just kidding. But those are spam filter AI that help look at an email's information, the context, where it's coming from. And it says, you know what, this doesn't look safe. Let's actually move this over there. So it's things like this where you recognize that artificial intelligence is really all around you. You engage with it all the time. And the reality is it's so seamless, you don't typically know you're engaging with it. So let's take a step forward and talk about generative AI. So generative AI is, like I said earlier, it's kind of been this gateway drug into the field of artificial intelligence. The field of artificial intelligence actually started in 1956 when the term artificial intelligence was coined at the Dartmouth conference. Okay, so you can think about how old that really is. But here we are with this new advancement in AI that's generative. So generative AI uses advanced algorithms to create new content, ideas, and solutions based on learned patterns from existing data. All right, so what is that data? All right, well, generative AI models, okay, so these you can think about as ChatGPT, Google, Gemini, Anthropic's Claude, Microsoft's Copilot, whatever your flavor of generative AI is, it's all been trained on vast amounts of data. That data includes everything on the internet, everything from the smartest research journals, the New York Times, all the way down to those obnoxious recipes that you have to scroll through a person's life story just to figure out how you're going to make like a biscuit. It's a whole thing. Then we have things like Reddit or other personal information forums that also have been scraped to create generative AI. So it's really a hodgepodge of data. And that's just textual data. We also have mass scraping that's gone on to create image generation models, video generation models, voice models. It goes on and on and on. So what can generative AI do? Well, it can generate text. Most of you have experienced this already with things like chatbots that you've used, or even if you've used things like Siri or Alexa, that's a natural language processing generative AI that can understand what you're saying and then provide you feedback. But most of you have used things like ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, Gemini to really give some input-output text generation. Then there's image generation, as I discussed. So whether this might be for you DALL-E, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, you're able to provide a natural language input. So just write some text. Give me an image of a raccoon surfing pizza in space. And I add that because I have run workshops, trainings, conferences for state level boards, for government entities, for CEOs and big corporations. And it is hilarious how when you show people image generation, you think they're going to use this to create imagery to help with infographics or public knowledge or things like that. But no, people want to create raccoons floating on pizza in space. I don't know what it is. It's fascinating. More power to you. But image generation is another powerful way generative AI can be used. Then we have image recognition. So one of the new ways that AI is really becoming a powerful tool is in its ability to recognize things, okay? So I could right now with my phone connect to ChatGPT voice mode, share my screen and ask it what color my hair is, and it will know, okay? You could show it a can of a product on your desk and ask it, what is this product and what are the key ingredients in it? And it will be able to tell you. So this image recognition mixed with now this knowledge base is really starting to create opportunities. We see this as well in the combination of augmented reality and virtual reality, which we'll talk about more. But this can really help from the standpoint of helping you better connect with the environment around you through an access of a knowledge base that can also see with you. Then transcription. So this is pretty obvious. Generative AI can be used to transcribe things that you're saying or meaning notes, those types of things. And then 3D modeling. So this is one of the really interesting things that I've been a part of and that a lot of the organizations I work with have really advanced into is we can now use generative AI to help with 3D modeling. So one company that I work with, they actually took a generative AI model and programmed it to build the tips of their Fanuc robotic arms. And so what it does is it, based on the material that they're working with and the movement that the robot has to perform, it creates a more advanced or improved hook or attachment to that Fanuc. So there's ways that you can now connect this that really makes sense for your industry or space. Lastly is auto generation. Or audio generation. So audio generation, and we also have video generation. I bring that up because sometimes folks aren't really sure how we can actually be using that. Well, I'll tell you that one of the most incredible things you can do with generative AI now is take the knowledge that someone on your staff has or even your HR team has and distill it into a space that you can actually hold it for later. So what I mean by that is if you wanted your lead engineer to train your entry-level engineers, but your lead engineer has no time, you could actually take their image, use it to create an AI avatar, and then use their voice samples to create a whole training system where that lead engineer is actually going to train your entry-level engineer on an on-demand basis. So a lot of companies are using this in human resources for onboarding. The really solid benefit with this is you never have to re-record anything. Let's say something changed at 4 p.m. and it needs to be different for 8 p.m. You don't have to bring a whole crew in and refilm. You just simply edit the script and the AI will generate a new video to tell it exactly what you want. So there's definitely big cost savings in that alone. So let's look at some key AI applications. So we're going to leave generative AI off the table right now. And we're just going to talk about key AI applications in your primary sector. So one of the things I'm going to focus on a lot is things like predictive maintenance and predictive analytics. So we'll start with diagnostics, and I won't go through this whole list. I'll just pick out some of the key ones that seem to be, from my experience and in many of the industries I work with, what they're leaning to adopt most due to cost saving and effectiveness, right? The tech's ready, now it's time to implement it and really reap the benefits of this. So diagnostics. So we're going to look at diagnostics and predictive analytics. So what we typically do is we go into businesses or organizations and they have tier 1 equipment, right? That tier 1 equipment is going to have smart sensors put on it. That smart sensor is going to start extracting the data I talked about earlier, that valuable data your operation, your company is producing every day, every hour, every minute, and every second, okay? And what it's going to start doing is it's going to take all that data and put it into a system. Some companies I work with bring in a third-party system. Some people have built some in-house tracking systems of their own, depending on staff and their ability to work in that space, the technical space. So what we're doing is we're really taking that smart sensor and we're looking at things like humidity, vibration, energy cycles, those types of things. I've actually worked with an organization that had a tier 1 piece of equipment that produced small little screws, okay? One of the pieces of equipment that produced small little screws, I think it was like 42 minutes, created one screw that had an inaccuracy, little flaw in it. They couldn't figure it out. No one on the staff could figure it out. The producers of the machinery couldn't figure it out. It was this very strange anomaly. So we put a smart sensor on the machine and we put them on all the other machines in the manufacturing space. And what we ended up finding is that when a certain other tier 1 machinery kicked into its full production cycle, there was an uptick of energy. And that little bit of energy that enhanced that machine actually created that flaw in the other. So we were able to tamper with the electrical and create it so it was a more even and gradual, enhanced approach to getting that energy cycle up to where it needed to be. So that predictive analytics is also going to help you make sure you understand when your machinery might be running into a problem. So on the screen here, you'll see the visual where it kind of has those red, yellow, and green lights. So the software that I'm most familiar with that folks use actually takes all that tier 1 equipment into a space where it then assigns it green, yellow, or red. And you can think of exactly what that means, right? Green means everything that machine needs to be doing is running flawlessly, no issues. Yellow is telling us there's starting to be something off. A belt's going to need to be replaced soon. A vibration's coming back at a wrong frequency. A humidity level looks to be too high. It's starting to prime us that machine is going to need some work. This will help us better figure out who we may need to bring in, what might need to happen during a downtime in the production cycle, all of those things. Now, getting into red, this machine's probably going to need pretty immediate attention, but it really helps you prepare and plan for that, which for some of this equipment can really be the difference between a large maintenance bill or downtime for your operation. And when it's not running, you're not making money. Time is money. You got it. So we have that automation of tasks. That's pretty straightforward. We talked about that earlier. Taking the ability of something you're going to do and incorporating some form of automation. Just going back to that basic definition of AI, teaching a computer to do something that a human would do. We have things like supply chain optimization. So I've definitely seen the integration and use of using AI for tracking supply chain. Trimble is a company that I've worked with who has taken this really great GPS mapping approach combined with supply chain AI, and it will monitor sites, traffic, all of these different parameters far better than a human could ever do. And it will literally say to a shipping outsource, like, hey, in 31 minutes, this freight is scheduled to leave. Bump that time to 20 minutes from then because the traffic in this one zone will have cleared based on traffic data history, and we'll be able to get a smoother transition of product. There's also just supply optimization and inventory monitoring that's going to come into play there that can be really beneficial to keep your operation running as smoothly as possible. Things like quality control, process optimization, energy management is another one. It's very similar to the smart sensors before. And as I talked about in that earlier example, we were looking at energy levels to try to understand some of the anomalies in some of that equipment, but really looking at energy consumptions and opportunities to better enhance your site or facility's energy management use. And as we move into these next few cycles over the next 3, 5, and 10 years, we're going to see energy demands shift and change. As we know, we're seeing that in the AI industry where they're now looking at things like nuclear power. And I believe the Trump administration says they're going to invest 10 billion or 20 billion into that space. So we're going to definitely see more energy management wants and needs. Then things like computer vision or image recognition. So it's not just about what your machine is doing, it's about what it's producing. And I like to use that example earlier of the tier 1 machine that was producing the screws with the anomaly, because the reason we were able to detect that every hour anomaly was that we were using a computer vision system that could look at those screws and quickly tell you we had one that was created in a flawed state. So it's things like that that are going to help. Companies are also bringing in, I talked earlier about AR, VR, so augmented reality or virtual reality. So virtual reality is going into a space that's totally virtual. People typically would wear a virtual reality headset. So there's companies like Harley-Davidson that have used things like virtual reality to help train staff on anomalies. So typically only 1 in every 7,000 parts produced by the Harley-Davidson manufacturing spaces create some form of piece with an anomaly. Okay, that's fine. But it's really hard for employees to recognize that one entity. So what they've done is they've used things like image recognition technology mixed with virtual reality, and they've created a virtual reality process where their employees are able to see a part that's created with an anomaly in every 1 in every 21. Then they bump it up to 1 in every 37, then 1 in every 50. Okay, so it's creating opportunities for them to better recognize information. Now that's with human combination, but many of these applications are done purely with computer. So now we'll look at AI industry integration. So AI is really becoming this core component of various operational and decision-making processes. So we can kind of see, I always say the tech that's going on in one industry can always trickle into another industry. So if we look at healthcare, things like predictive diagnostics and operational efficiency, these absolutely trickle into our manufacturing spaces, our engineering spaces as well. In the service industry, looking at things like customer insights and automated support, these things can all happen in your space as well. You have customers, right, who send you emails, who call you, who write you chats on your chatbot on your website. All of these things involve spaces where AI could be involved to help create a more seamless experience and keep your operations running more efficiency while your AI is busy responding to emails, having chats with customers, whatever it might be. In the manufacturing sector, we just talked about a ton, but that quality control or supply chain optimization. Then in IT, automated maintenance, cybersecurity, these things will come into play as AI continues to be a growing field and a growing integration space in the business and industry sector in the next 3, 5, and 10 years. So we'll see more automated maintenance happening both in your spaces and in IT and technical spaces. Also things like cybersecurity, your tier 1 equipment, tier 2 equipment, the computers in your office, they're all tied to networks, and networks need to have security systems on them. So it's all involved. Then there's things like agriculture. So this is where the university I work for, UW-Stout, has been doing a lot of great advancement in. So crop health monitoring, so we can actually fly a drone over a field of crops and through a machine learning algorithm, be able to tell what crops maybe aren't producing correctly or what seeds may have anomalies that won't grow effectively. And then there's things like soil quality analysis. These, again, can all relate to every field and sector, as many sectors are producing things that need a quality analysis. So just a great way to keep in mind all the advancements in AI industry integration across the board that are really going to implement and integrate into many different industry spaces. So let's now look at some key use cases. So we really talked about predictive maintenance already. So those smart sensors that detect problems before they can occur. It just makes sure your tier 1 equipment stays running efficiently and effectively. It also makes sure that your downtime is the most effective that it can be, right? We know what needs to be fixed right away. Then there's computer vision. So supporting facial and product recognition. This is really critical when we look at things like security in the future, when we look at quality control. So the ability of, like we talked about earlier, a machine to be able to better understand anomalies in the production cycle, things that shouldn't be met. In the food industry, we're seeing this used to detect food that could have some form of contaminant. So we're not seeing, and we won't see in the future, as many foods go out that need recalls, right? Because those systems are already monitoring the end products that are coming off the line. Then we have things like medical diagnostics. And this goes back to that really deep and advanced analytical retrieval and summarization and synthesizing. So deep learning trainings to support imaging diagnostics or predictive diagnostics. These are all advanced AI use cases that can go on, but could also be translated into many different industries, sectors, and above all, your sector. So let's turn now and look at some key generative AI integration or applications that tend to be the most prevalent industries. And like I said, I won't walk through all of these. I'll just give you some examples. So first, we'll talk about content generation. So most of you are going to be familiar with, like I said before, things like your Chat GPT, right? Things like Microsoft Copilot, Google's Gemini, Anthropic's Claude, maybe even Jasper. It seems that every day there is a new AI or generative AI tool coming onto the market, okay? But what most of us seem to use these for is for content generation. So you're giving a prompt input, so just a natural language input into a large language model or your Chat GPT, and it's giving you an output. This can be used for many different things. You could use it to help write copy for a website. You could use it to help write instructions for staff on how to properly shut down equipment at the end of the night. You could help to use it to take that instruction to shut down that equipment at the end of the night and make it bilingual if you work in a bilingual environment. So there's a lot of different use cases for content generation. Now, moving more into the manufacturing and even engineering sector, we start look at design prototyping. Now, this is something that I've definitely been hands-on and involved in the last few years. But design prototyping is using generative AI and that image generation and also that image recognition that we talked about earlier to create products or prototypes in a certain sector or space. So we can naturally language prompt what we would like to see it create. So that just means you're putting in exactly what you'd like to see. Design a headset that has a built-in holder for my cell phone. I don't know why you'd want that, but I've seen some crazy things. I did a training at Target Corporation, a workshop with their designers on design prototyping. And they wanted to design for women a fishing hat that had all these different compartments that you could keep your phone and different things in, which I thought was strange, but they thought it was fabulous. So that was fashion for you. But this can also trickle into many different engineering sectors as well as manufacturing sectors. And it allows you to develop products faster than ever before. So I'll give you some examples of this. We have a project here at UW-Stout where we bring kindergarten students in to meet with our senior level engineers in the fall. And this year we decided to do this a little bit different. So the kindergartners arrive, and what they're there to work on is to design a toy. They have a toy in mind, a dream toy that they want their engineering student to help them create. And each toy is different. That can produce a problem, right? It's hard to manufacture all these different things. So what we've done is we've used AI prototyping. So what we first do is we have our students meet with the client. They describe this dream toy. And what the student does is they use Adobe Firefly, and it is an image generation tool, and they plug in all the components of this toy. And what they're provided is an image of the toy to show their client. And this all happens in minutes, not months, not weeks, not over continuous meetings, moments. And then the student or the client sees the toy and says, yeah, that's right, or no, I want this or that or the other thing, right? This resonates so extensively into the working world where this is definitely used every day now, where we're not able to just talk in concepts, we're able to show clients real products. Now, we are then able to take that design prototype of that toy, put it into an AI 3D modeling system, have it create the 3D model, and print it. So we can go from concept to toy in as little as 4 hours. So you can see the rapid production that these generative AI tools, when kind of strung together, can create. And when you start thinking of creating prototypes in your space, this is definitely a rapid pace thing. Like I said, have worked with major corporations who are integrating this, down to design teams in San Francisco who are working on this to create better tech products. Everyone seems to be working into this, designing rapid prototyping using this type of tech. Product development falls in that same line: synthetic data, report generation, product customizations, personalization. So really being able to take products and make them more customized, but using generative AI to help incorporate those customized products into your production cycle. Then you have things like advanced chatbots, synthetic images and video creation. So we talked about that before. This will go along with training. So it has been challenging in the past. I've worked with a company this summer. They're out of the state of Minnesota, but they have tractor repair spaces all over the United States. So tractors. So you have to think, you have farmers that have the most advanced tractor, and you have farmers that are still moving fields around with tractors they've repaired from the 80s. Okay, so we have this advanced index of training manuals and books, right, that help these repair folks best fix whatever tractor rolls through the door. You can also think about this as cars, right? Whatever car rolls into the shop, you got to figure out why it's making that pinging noise, okay? So what we did this summer is we created a training central space, but more, we created a centralized hub for any of these repair folks nationwide to access repair information. So what we did is we took all of the content that is involved in any of the tractors they have serviced over the last 10 years. So we ran a report, okay? We then took that and said, what are all the tractors that have been serviced? Okay, here they all are. We then pulled all the content for the manuals that are involved in those tractors, and I'll tell you, some of the great things about generative AI is it can transcribe pages of text because some of these manuals hadn't been digitized. Also, some of the notes that we put into training our customized AI were handwritten notes from texts in the past, right? But we could just give it a picture and ask it to transcribe those notes and put it into the knowledge base. And what we created was a knowledge base where any tech could then have just an iPad and they could access this knowledge base and ask, hey, I have a 1993 John Deere tractor that's making this ping sound on this sector. What could be wrong with it? And it will quickly search that database and give repair information. This can be used, of course, in manufacturing spaces for equipment. I also talked earlier about augmented reality. So this is another way that I'm definitely seeing more repair work coming in, since we're kind of in the vein of that. So there is a company out of the east side of our state who has a few pieces of tier 1 equipment that can only be repaired by a specialist in Ohio. Okay, it's a lot of money to have this specialist in Ohio come up to their space and fix this equipment. So what they've now done is they've created an opportunity where their in-house technicians can put on an augmented reality headset that connects to the specialist in Ohio, and he can walk them through how to fix that tier 1 equipment live. Okay, so that's definitely in use here locally in Wisconsin, as well as nationally and abroad. So it's ways to start thinking about generative AI mixed with robotics and augmented reality and virtual reality, and how we can get from point A to point B much quicker. Then I'll just say this real quick about that synthetic image video and training. I talked earlier about generative AI can create images of people, it can create videos with people. So one of the great things you can do with your company or your organization or your space is you could actually create a video of your lead technician, your floor manager, explaining to someone safety protocols, and it's not even them. So people tend to listen better than they want to read. So you want to make sure people see it. So you can make a short, quick video that looks like your floor manager talking. It sounds like your floor manager talking, but it's not. Now, I'll keep in mind, all of this tech can be used in nefarious ways, but there's rules and regulations by the DOJ to keep that from happening. Always keep that in mind. But it can be used in these really enhanced, productive ways where you can create a really interesting system level video or training that can really help your company move forward without having to hire an expensive production crew, or if something's recorded incorrectly, having to reshoot, those types of things. Then there's sales forecasting, scenario planning, code generation. These models are excellent with code development work. You're going to see in the future, as Meta just announced last week and Monday, that they're moving forward with things like AI agents that will do some mid-level engineering work in their spaces. This will be coding work. We'll see. These systems that I've worked with are not that fully autonomous yet, but they're growing and evolving. We'll eventually see them more and more. Then translation, as we talked about, and certainly risk assessment. So we talked a lot about some use cases, but I'll give you some generative AI industry integration. So in healthcare, things like medical research and medical imaging. Service industry, you've got your chatbots, personalization. Manufacturing, you have product design, predictive maintenance. Agriculture, report generation, crop prediction, and then IT code generation and threat simulation. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, things that are advancements that go on in one industry trickle into another. So they all reflect this tech works very seamlessly throughout different spaces and places. So I'll give you just a few Gen AI use cases. So personalized content creation and training. So really automating the production of things like marketing materials, product descriptions, social media content, or even things like customized training, as I've already described. So you no longer have to hire fancy production or have all these different people who are specialized in writing out training information. You can rely on creating either a centralized hub or having someone in your company who's experienced with these Gen AI tools that can create a lot of this. Then things like a customized knowledge base. So development of a RAG system that can use natural language processing for anything from product inventory to automotive maintenance. So let's slow down, pump the brakes, and take a look at that RAG system. So all I mean when I say that, if well, it's a retrieval augmented generation system, but let's go back. I talked to you just a moment ago about this tractor database we built, right, of all the tractor maintenance documentation and how we created this centralized hub. So like this gentleman you'll see on your screen, he's going into a system, he's looking at how to fix a certain part, and the Gen AI can tell him based on its knowledge base. That's all we mean. We've created with a RAG system a knowledge base, and it can be of anything. It can be of all the maintenance information in your facility. It could be of all the electrical products in your home. I have colleagues who have taken all of the manuals for all of the electrical products or technology products they own in their home and put it into a custom AI that they can just chat with if their TV isn't turning on or the speaker isn't connecting correctly, whatever it might be, right? So we can create a personalized knowledge base. That's all I want you to think of it as. Then we have customer service. And this is just a major integration that I'm just seeing across the board. So chatbots and virtual assistants which provide this real-time, personalized, customized support. I will add, I'm far along in my career now, but when I first graduated college, which was eons ago, my first job was to build chatbots. I worked in e-commerce. And so it's wild how we've gone full circle, but the tech has gotten so much better. And so we're able to create this more seamless space. And I don't want you to think of chatbots as just external clients, right? You can use chatbots for your internal folks. If you have certain training you need them to take, you could have them take that through an internal chatbot. If you have certain maintenance things, again, internal chatbot. It's all about creating this really great advanced version of knowledge. You have someone on your team that understands all of the certain maintenance, great. Have them work to build a chatbot. Right? Then we have managing change through AI interactions. So I want to just take a look at kind of this cycle of bringing in and onboarding these AI tools. One of the biggest things I hear is that folks, okay, so there's two things. Let's unpack it. Folks are afraid of this tech. Okay, I get it. It's different. It's a change. I led a workshop yesterday with a group of faculty who, when I was done, said, "You've thoroughly freaked me out." Okay, great. Technology and change do tend to freak people out. I've also heard people say things like, "I'm worried that if I bring on AI, my staff will start leaving because they'll think they're being replaced." That's definitely not happening. Tech just is not there yet. These are things that are going to really help and bolster the productivity of your team. So I kind of created this cycle, right? So the first one is we're going to start in that top blue sector of be prepared. So, or no, we're actually going to start at training. So we're going to start with knowledge. So we started today with this clear onset of foundational knowledge, right? I started, what's AI? What's Gen AI? That's great. Some of you already are probably very fluent with that, but not everyone in the room always is. I've gone to many different spaces and places where you have someone who can almost build a large language model, and you have someone in the room who doesn't even know what AI means, right? So you want to assume that you need to get everyone onto the same plane or foundation of AI literacy. So you're going to first start with training, and training can mean whatever it needs to be. You need to train employees about new AI technology, and you need them to start thinking about actions and tasks. What are the actions and tasks that your staff does every day that could start to be automated or supported by this new technology? Then we communicate. So we communicate the benefits of AI integration. So like I said, it's not replacing, it's supporting. I always say we all wear many hats. Okay. You wear many hats. I wear many hats. When I graduated college, when I graduated with my master's, when I got more education, I thought, well, now I'll only wear these certain hats. It never happened. I'm wearing tons of hats. We all do. But I like to think that AI creates an environment where we can wear the hat we're most meant to wear, and AI can wear those hats that we've kind of just over time we've adopted to it, right? We're all very skilled and good at certain things, and there's certain tasks that has just become a hat that we wear. So let's look at those types of things that we could maybe offboard. Then we talk about manage expectations. So first, you want to set realistic goals to ensure successful adoptions. I would always start with a systems level approach of your low hanging fruit, okay? Because here's how this is going to work. You are going to first come into a space where you need to convince typically someone else or someone in C-level or your boss or manager that you want to bring in an AI tool. Okay. But what they really want to see from this is productivity gain and a return on investment. So if you can find a low-hanging fruit space that you can show those two things with, it helps buy in folks on AI. And it also should help buy you in on AI. If you bring in a system or tool and it's not increasing productivity and it's not a return on investment, move on. You picked the wrong tool. Sometimes it just takes trial and error, but you need to manage and set those realistic goals and expectations. Then there's that buy-in. So that's important. And that's what I mean when I say you got to find those things that you can bring this in a lower level that helps start to build and grow that buy-in. It starts to show your staff this is not something to be afraid of. It's something that can help us not wear all these hats all the time, have more time to do the things we were trained in, we were more productive in. What I find and what you might have found is when I lead workshops or I work with teams on integrating AI into their spaces, people always want to go to ChatGPT and they want to prompt in about something they're really good at. The social media manager always wants it to write a social media post, right? The engineer always wants to have it write in about advanced calculations in engineering, and they're disappointed. Why? Because that's their hat. That's what they're the subject matter expert of. Let AI work through the hats you're not as comfortable wearing, okay? So that helps you get that key buy-in from stakeholders or executives, or it helps you justify the expense for your company to bring in these tools, okay? It's all about just managing those expectations, growing the buy-in and setting those goals. Then create a plan of where and how. AI doesn't fit as seamless in some spaces as it does others. There will be folks on your team, like administrative assistants, that are going to benefit exponentially from AI integration, and others who won't. Maybe in your financial spaces, they just won't benefit as much because for risks or concerns, you're not going to share your financial data with an AI. Okay, great. That person wouldn't need an AI tool, but they could still use things like ChatGPT or other generative AI to help them maybe with formulas to get even better spreadsheets or financial reports, things of that nature. So you just have to create a plan and execute on those tasks and actions of your staff to best understand where and when AI makes sense, okay? And then, but lastly, be prepared. So be prepared for those setbacks and pushbacks. This, like anything, takes time. And it takes time because what you're doing is you're integrating a new process into your system. You're integrating a new tool, you're integrating a new routine and a new habit. Those things take time. It takes time with any of that across the board. You're definitely going to have pushback of people who are not willing or want the change. But you have to start slow with those low hanging fruits and show them how maybe this team over here saw exponential productivity gains. And now you have a team who's telling everyone else, yeah, we started using this AI tool and now I have way more time to do the stuff at work I actually like to do, right? Or now I have more time to send emails when I didn't before. So there's these setbacks and pushbacks you're going to experience with anything, but you're just going to have to traverse and work through them. And like I said, always be honest with yourself, right? Going back to manage expectations and buy-in, if you bring in an AI tool and you're not seeing ROI from it, you have the wrong tool. Disband it and move on. There's new AI tools coming out every day and there's new tech coming out every day. So let's look at building an AI integration plan for you or your team. So empower your team to adopt, adapt, and excel with emerging technologies. So first is build a team. And that can be as small as you and someone else or you and a whole department, all right? I would always include IT infrastructure team in your planning, or someone in your team that's better suited to understand the technical aspects of some of this technology. If you don't, you could bring in someone from another company that's more familiar, or a consultant, but you're going to want someone who's going to understand like the risks and securities of bringing some of these tools in. You're going to want technology trainers. So this depends on the size of your team. When you're bringing in a new technology, you're going to want someone who's better able to assess people's day and help them understand how they'll integrate this in. So one of the workshops I run is about actions and tasks. You as a professional, I as a professional, we are all performing actions and tasks. It makes up the bulk of our hours, days, weeks, months, and year at our employer, okay? And at the end of that, we are able to sit back and make a pie chart, okay? How much of your day do you spend doing X, Y, and Z? And what actions and tasks that make up that pie chart could be automated or benefit from the integration of an AI tool? Okay, now the second part of recognizing those opportunities is getting the training and the skills that your staff needs. So that goes back to things like AI literacy, right? So your team's going to need to understand AI, Gen AI, how these tools work, how to integrate with them. Takes a little time and commitment, but it's worth it when you're starting to see those 10x and more productivity gains. Then you have department managers. These are people that really need to be some of the leaders of those spaces, because those are the people that are going to best understand that pie chart of activity that's going on in your space, those tasks and actions, and how that team can then be improved with these types of tools. Then you have to assess changes. So you need to determine if you have needs for the staff, whether that be enhanced training or some more AI literacy, whether you need to bring someone in to help train or assess things like tasks and actions. Then you're going to want to start assessing the tools that are available. So now that we kind of know what we want, what tool could we bring in, what price point fits us, those types of things. Then you need daily time allocation. So we have to create a change space where people understand that these tools or processes are now part of our day. Whether that means we use ChatGPT during some tasks, or whether that means your engineer hourly checks the predictive analytics that are pumping into the software system that you're using, right? It just becomes part of the day's tasks to look at these things. So it's really about retraining and assessing the environment and preparing your staff to effectively onboard, but consistently utilize these tools, because we won't see gains without utilization. And then, of course, it's determining those tasks for easy adoption. So that goes back to what I talked about earlier in the cyclical process of getting these tools onboarded, is really understanding what are those low-hanging fruit, those system level 1 tasks that these tools or technologies could be adopted for? Maybe it is just putting smart sensors on your tier 1 equipment and starting to filter that data into a predictive maintenance system. Maybe that's all it is, right? It's assessing what needs to be done to get you to the next step. And then it's championing those successes. So this just helps you keep moving on that cyclical approach, right? So communicate. So you're going to want to set some benchmarks, some things you're going to want to see out of this. This is part of that buy-in. This is part of that implementation process that's going to help buy you in, that's going to help buy the others in your team in. You're going to want some impact metrics to help you better understand where it's gotten you to. And then always think about training and growth and those incremental wins, because it's easy to say, well, we did all this, but where are the gains? Think about it in small gains and stages and steps, because just not everything is built overnight. And with new tech, it always involves some level of just steady integration with continuous checkpoints to see where you're getting. And it involves a lot. It involves finding the tech, bringing it on board, retraining, gaining that buy-in from staff to continuously use it. So it just takes time, but the reality is it's far worth it when you see the productivity gains of it. And it's why there was a major report that just came out yesterday, and 40% of industries have onboarded or are onboarding this tech in absurd amounts, far beyond what we've seen in any previous year. And if you've looked at the supply chain, if you want to see where this tech is going, watch the supply chain, I always say, but also look at venture capitalist investments, right? All of the money that's swirling around in Silicon Valley and in other tech spaces is moving into this tech and then into industry. So with that, I'm just going to wrap up. This has been the basic kind of introduction into implementing AI into and Gen AI into a manufacturing space. It gives you kind of a broader impact, but it helps you better understand what tech is out there and how you can move forward. I'll stop sharing, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to stay on and answer them. Yes, Nate, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Great presentation.
Thank you.
I have some questions about, how to mine an existing database, I guess, of, I've got mountains of internal data that's all isolated in spreadsheets. Can a bot or generative AI or maybe some large model of some type be used to mine that type of information?
Yeah, it can. And I saw, as you can imagine, I get products and services and companies send me stuff constantly. This makes me laugh. This is a random aside. I got a complaint from IBM on Friday that I never talk about them on my podcast. And I'm like, because I'm me and you're IBM, like I don't need to talk about you. But the reality is, yes, I saw a new product that has not come out yet, but it is about using an AI and a Gen AI to scrape and move into a new database.
Sure.
I don't remember the specifics of it, so I can tell you confidently I know that that's out there, but I don't know the specifics of what that company was called or where it was coming from.
Sure. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And then I've got a second question.
Sure.
What sort of safeguards are there for, let's call them digital hallucinations?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit to that topic?
Sure. You want me just to talk about generative AI hallucination?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, so just so everyone in the room is on the same page, generative AI agents like ChatGPTs, Geminis, Copilots, Claudes hallucinate. So this is where and these large language models are confidence agents. They will tell you anything in the most confident tone that can be total bullshit. Okay. And so, I don't know if I should use that word, but now we all are on the same page. So the reality is, hallucinations happen. We as humans hallucinate. Okay. I always like to use the example of we all went through COVID and we all got on this strange cycle where we watched a lot of like murder Netflix documentaries. And what was part of those documentaries was always the investigation. And there was always this part where someone claimed they saw a white vehicle at the time of an incident, and there was this eyewitness testimony that said this. And if you look back at any really famous cases in our history, there's always this eyewitness testimony. But the challenge is that eyewitness testimony is often wrong. Now, AIs do the same thing. There's this challenge where they will, at times, confidently tell you something that is absolutely incorrect, called a hallucination. It happens. The data scientists that produce these models aren't even sure why they always happen, but they do. That hallucination is coming down in occurrence, but it can happen from time to time. And what we always say with folks, because I just came from this prompt engineering training before I was here, is that part of the risk and challenge of using an AI is hallucination. And so we always want to take that like wash, rinse, repeat approach, where anytime we're using an AI, we're always trying to kind of get a review of the content. So it's just important to kind of get a glance at it and take a peek at it. At this time, that's the best I can tell you because the confidence levels just aren't as high as they should be. So if we were using it just as a straight output agent, you'd still want a human in the loop to always be taking a look at that content from time to time and kind of doing sort of a micro assessment, making sure it's not overly hallucinating.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I guess I
All
have
right.
one more. I
Oh,
have one more
please.
since
Please.
I've heard this concept of a AI digital twin.
Mhm.
What is that?
Okay, so an AI digital twin, from my understanding, is you go into a space and create a digital twin of a system, and then the AI simply works through your digital twin to help you understand how things are going to operate or bottlenecks. That to me
Okay.
is my best understanding.
Okay.
I've worked with a company that does predictive AI digital twin work. So they are a company that I have an NDA with them, so I only can say so much, but they're a company that goes in after a certain space has been built. So let's say let's just give an example. They put pumps, like gas pumps, in once the whole quick trip has been built. Okay. So what they have in their system is a digital twin of the full quick trip that's being built. And their AI goes in and it maps out where the pumps are going to go based on the actual spacing that they were given in that certain quick trip. That's the best example I can give you, but that's my understanding of how it works from my experience, but it could be far more advanced than that. I'm not entirely sure.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. If there's any other questions, let me know. You can always reach out to me after. Otherwise, I greatly appreciate your time.
Don't forget to register for the next webinar we have coming up in February. All that is on the MOC's website or on our Facebook or LinkedIn pages.